Success and significance are two different things. And in the success path, you can make a lot of money. You can have success, whatever you define that as, though eventually you'll have an ending point. Significance, on the other hand, is a space that is finite. You can have significance for many legacies beyond you. And so why coaches versus real estate? Because I didn't feel there was a significance path down that road. And when I watched the impact that my father had had on other coaches, on athletes, on parents, that was significant.
Welcome to She Coaches Coaches, the podcast where we have thoughtful, honest conversations about what it really takes to build a thriving coaching business. I'm your host, Candy Motzek, and before building my business, I spent years as a senior corporate leader. Now, today, I work with coaches who are smart, well-trained, and deeply capable, and who want clarity about how to grow in a way that feels aligned and financially sustainable. On this show, I sit down with successful coaches to explore the real decisions behind their success, how they got started, what shifted as they grew, and the mindset and business choices that helped them gain momentum without burning out. Whether you're early in your coaching journey or refining a business you've already built, She Coaches Coaches is here to offer perspective, confidence, and grounded insight to support your next chapter. To learn more about how I work with people, go to my website, stepintosuccessnow.com. And now let's dive in. Hi, friend, and welcome to this episode. I have a wonderful guest to share with you today, and I would like to tell you a little bit more about him. His name is Adam Roach, and he is the founder of I Love Coaching Co., where he helps established coaches move from uncertainty to ownership. Most of the coaches that he works with have momentum, but growth feels heavier than it should. And he helps to guide them to simplify their model, increase leverage, and build to 300K per year and beyond without adding more hours or complexity. His focus is on clarity over hype and ownership over hustle. Adam, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Andy, thank you for having me. That was a great intro, and I'm excited to be here. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Tell me a little bit about what's going on with you and your company right now. Like, what's the thing that's really pulling your attention and drawing your focus?
Well, what's really neat is we are a community of coaches. So the co in the name isn't company, it is community. And the idea that I wanted to, and I can give the origin story, I won't go into great detail though, and just for time's sake, my father was an Olympic swim coach and he was my coach my entire life. Of course, dad, but also if I had business questions or life questions or anything, he was a good coach. And when he passed in 2019 and I was speaking his eulogy, I was looking out over the audience. And Candy, I saw athletes, I saw coaches, I saw parents, I saw many people that he had impacted. At the time, I owned real estate franchises. I had three of them up and down the southeast coast here. I had a software company that I was running. When he passed, I thought, gosh, am I impacting at the level that my father is or was? Am I impacting humans in a level where if I was to die tomorrow, how many people would come to my funeral? And it led me down what we call inside of the community the beach chair moment. And the beach chair moment was I sat on the beach here in Charleston. I'm a spiritual guy, so I prayed. I kept my Bible, my journal, my sunscreen for my bald head with me, and I kept hearing surround yourself with different people. And so it was at that point I surrendered and I said, okay, I'm going to go surround myself with people who want to serve other people. And that's when I decided I wanted to build a community of coaches. And so fast forward now, since that thought process, after I sold everything, we've now been blessed to be on 4 continents and we are just growing every single day. And I'm loving it. We just got off a community call literally right before this recording. And what are we focused on right now? We're focused on the coaches who are in there. They're all in different phases. We have 4 different phases. And some of them are phase 2, which is developing their one-on-one business. Phase 3 is developing what we call the one-to-many business, which is different from group coaching. And then phase 4 is how do we scale this business to where I'm on different stages, whether it's keynoting, whether it's podcasting, whether it's writing books, whether it's being a TED Talk speaker, whatever it may be. That's where we help them. So I'm excited about all of that growth there and all of the areas that these coaches are serving and impacting other people.
I love that. And I love that the CO is community. social company, and it can also be a
Could be.
bunch of other things too. One of the words that you said that really stuck out for me was this word surrender.
Mm.
You went to this quiet moment on your beach chair and got quiet enough to actually hear the answer. Now, when you heard surround yourself, why couldn't it have been surround yourself with more real estate investors? Like, why coaches instead of real estate investors or some other group of people?
Great question. So as I sat there, I heard this, and again, I went to my pastor and I said, "Hey, I'm hearing this. You said if I think I'm ever hearing God, I'm to lay it up on Scripture." And I said, "Well, you Scripture it for me." And I keep it on my wall right here. Proverbs 13:20. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Right. And when I heard that, and no disrespect to any of my investor partners, though I had inherited them when I bought these businesses, they weren't doing anything for me as it related to moving the significance needle forward. John Maxwell has been a dear friend and mentor of mine for a long time. And he's beaten to my head that, Adam, success and significance are two different things. And in the success path, you can make a lot of money. You can have success, whatever you define that as, though eventually you'll have an ending point. Significance, on the other hand, is a space that is finite. You can have significance for many legacies beyond you. And so, why coaches versus real estate? Because I didn't feel there was a significance path down that road. And when I watched the impact that my father had had on other coaches, on athletes, on parents, that was significant. And for me, that was the path. And quite frankly, there was a space where I also wanted to honor him. And I wanted to honor my father in this space of the coach. And it's never been a career, Candy. It's always been a calling. Every day that I've been doing this now, it is truly, I don't wake up by an alarm. I really don't wake up by an alarm. I truly wake up by the calling that pulls me out of bed and says, "Let's go. We're gonna go get to hang with people," which are coaches.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something about coaches that are different. And a couple of years ago, I had a client and I interviewed her on the show. And I asked, what did she think coaching was? Like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, what was that? What was that career that was coaching? And she said, I don't think it existed. I
Mm,
don't think people had evolved enough. They didn't have enough of their basic needs met to be able to want to excel. And I really appreciate that the definition success versus significance. I actually don't 100% agree because I don't think you can be successful if you're not having a significant impact on the world. Like that is one of the things that feeds us as
mhm.
humans. So, what's my question? My question is, what do you think about this? What do you think coaches were, 200 years ago, 300 years ago? What do you think it was to be a coach then?
Well, let's go back and really define what a coach is. Coaching is such a buzzword, right? In my opinion, coaching is so broadly used right now, and specifically in the universe that we live in. If we jump on any social media outlet, you're going to see the word coach probably more frequently than you have in the past, right? And a lot of people use that term loosely in the standpoint that I've accomplished something and I'm going to show you how I accomplished something, and therefore I'm going to be a coach. Okay. And maybe you are. Or maybe you're a trainer, or maybe you're a consultant, right? That word to me, I like the word leader. I like the word
Mm,
leader. I like the word leadership because let's really break down what a leader is. A leader is an influencer. And what's an influencer do? An influencer gets someone to take action. So if we're talking 200 years ago, did we have people that were leaders? Now, you can have good leaders and you can have bad leaders. And man, that's a whole nother podcast topic if you want to of leadership. Though you could have good leaders, you could have bad leaders that were what? Influencing people to take action. So if
mm,
we look at what a coach is, a coach can step into the leadership space to help either one or many that they're in front of take action. So do I think they were around years ago? Probably so from that definition. Though
mhm.
if we look at, and I loved your language there of basic needs, because I love Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Absolutely love that thing. Because I do think that the coaches these days live on top of this self-actualization mountaintop though. right? And the self-actualization mountaintop is their language becomes so just you can do it too, kid. You can be the best version of
Sorry, did
yourself,
you
right?
just see my eyes roll back in my head? They rolled
Yeah,
back
and
so far,
it's
right?
that just drives me insane when they get these aspirational type language that just doesn't land, right? That's not coaching because you have to understand whether they need the basic needs, the safety needs, the belonging needs, the love and esteem needs, or again, yeah, maybe they are at that mountaintop where it is, I want to be the best version of myself. But that's a very small percentage. So was coaching around 200 years ago? Yeah, I think so. Just
Yeah.
maybe in a different language form.
You said earlier that there's sort of four different levels or phases of a coaching practice. How do
Mhm.
you approach that?
Yep. So if we look at a person first, right? Let's look at the person. We are made up of yesterday's experiences, right? Yesterday can be, I'm 49 years old. I've got, as long as I can remember experiences. And those experiences can be problem solution cycles, true problem solution cycles. And if you break down your problem solution cycles over a period of time, you'll be able to theme them out. But what we really focus on in our phase one is helping you identify your true identity. Right? Because so many times we see so many coaches coming into the community that are their identity is who they are from their past container. And this container that says, I was in the real estate space, so therefore I have to coach real estate agents. Or I was in the sporting world, so therefore I have to coach sporting people. That's not true. Because in your life, you have many problem solution cycles. Just as an example, I've lived through death. I've lived through a divorce. I've lived through making money. Lived through losing money. Right? There's many, and just because I'm in the coaching space doesn't mean I have to focus on one single space based on my past container. It can be any of those. So we call it going inside before you go out, and that's phase one. So once you get your true identity there, once you identify, sometimes we even take them, Candy, through this what we call the pose. Everybody has a pose. Everybody has a pose, and that pose is early on in life, you were wounded somewhere, which created a lie, which from that lie, you create a vow, VOW. That vow is I'm going to overcome this lie, which then creates a pose. And sometimes that pose creates inauthenticness. And so what we look at in phase one is how can we position you to become what we call a real coach? It's not arrogant. It's an acronym that stands for relevant, experiential, authentic leader. How do we help you become a real coach? So once we do that, then we move you into what we call phase two. Once you have identified your passion and your problem solution cycles and your avatar who you have passion for, now we teach you very simply how to go find them and find just 10 of them that you can work with one-on-one. Now here's the fun part. And this is I love sharing this approach because people will say, and I've had many people push back and say, no, 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 you should do a cohort first. No, 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 you should do a group first. No, no, you should do that. Cool. What I would argue is if when you go into one-on-one, you don't have a defined process yet, right? You're still defining it because you're still identifying which problem solution cycle you actually love. Because I believe there's 3 P's that you have to have. When you start off in the coaching business, it's going to be proximity based. You are the attractive character. As you do your one-on-ones, that's proximity to you. You're probably not going to have a high price point just yet because you are the one that is pricing yourself, not the payoff yet. So we call that in the first part there, you're actually writing your book, whether it's a physical book or a book in your head. Those one-on-one clients, Candy, they get all of the book. Okay. That's phase one. And the goal there is we help them get to $180,000 as fast as possible. 10 clients, $1,500 a piece. That's $15,000 a month. When you can do that in a 12-month period, that's $180,000. Okay, that sounds great. Let's go to phase three. Phase three is now taking what you've learned from your phase one, finding what we call your peers, not the coach peers, but the peers of your avatars, and say, now I'm going to create a process, a one-to-many process. And now that process that you coach to that peer group avatars, they don't get the whole book. They get a paragraph. I'm sorry, they get a chapter from the book. They get a chapter from the book. Because what most coaches that we have seen try to do when they go into a quote unquote group coaching, but we call it one to many because that's the peer group, is they try to cram the whole book into that cohort. the whole book into that one to many group. But we know that when you can just coach one chapter, it'll align with a specific avatar group that then you can go through. If you have 10 chapters, we call it your process. You can
Mhm.
have 10 different groups going on at one time. And if we do the math on that, you can now move to 360,000. Lastly, phase four. Phase four is where we help you go build it to $1 million, right? And $1 million because now you have your process down, you have your peer group, and you have your proximity, the three P's. And now it's time to go get up on a stage. Now it's time to go write a book. Now it's time to create a one to many outward reach that now funnels what we call your gravity centered model. And that's what it is. Sorry for the long winded answer there, but that's the process.
Yeah, but I mean, really what you're doing is you're describing your book to me, which is great, right? I
Yeah,
know that
that's
you
right.
don't actually
That's our
have a
workbook.
book
Yes.
yet, but essentially it's your book, right?
It is. It
You're
is.
you're living the thing that you teach and the groups that you help support them, you're showing it in action, so I
Yeah.
get that. And so quick question is how often do you find people evolve? I mean, that's part of what we do as humans. We grow and evolve. So how often do they have to go back to phase 1 and just get grounded again? Like, yeah, I thought this was it, not about dream client or avatar or niche, any of that, but just a reminder to themselves about what are my values? What is my deeper purpose here? How have I evolved because now I've done all this other work too? So what do you think?
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time they go from phase 2 to phase 3, you're going right back to phase 1. From phase 3 to phase 4, you gotta start at phase 1. Because every time we transition to one of those different phases, you're absolutely right, Candy, you step into a different version of yourself. You step
Mhm.
into a more, prepared version of yourself, right? But sometimes here's the thing. One-on-one business compared to one-to-many business is a different approach.
Mhm.
You could step into that space and say, I got to teach a chapter now, and I've got a little bit of imposter syndrome. So you got to go back to phase 1. Or now stepping into phase 4, and you say, okay, I'm going to write a book. Okay, I'm going to go get up on a stage, a physical stage, and do a keynote. Or I'm going to step on someone's podcast and I'm going to share my process. Oh man, I hope my pose doesn't show up. I
Mhm.
hope that I'm stepping into this the right way. And so, yeah, they go back to phase 1. So, we push people back there so frequently. When we see it on the community call, a segment of our community call, we call it the coaches coaching the coaches. And that's when the coaches get to show up and share a challenge that they're having. And I zip my lips and I push it on mute and I put my team on mute and I say, coaches, coach the coaches here. And the neat part about that is so frequently, and we kind of take a silly little oath that says we're not going to be judgmental. We're not going to jump right into the solution cycle. We're going to stay in curiosity. Most of the time, we have to tell them, go back to phase 1. Yep.
So you could just put that on the wall
Yeah.
behind you, right?
Mm,
Before you
that's right.
even start setting the boundaries for those calls. So
Mhm.
this is super interesting. And I love the way that it takes an individual and it takes them through an entire journey of a 7-figure business. I'm interested, the people that I work with, mostly professionals who are building their private practice. So always interested in what other coaches say. What do you think the places that most people get stuck when they're signing private clients, when they're developing their framework, developing their offer? What do you find?
It's so funny. This is gonna sound scripted, but I always go back to 3 Ps and not the original 3 Ps that I just shared with you of proximity, peers, and process. This is a completely different 3 Ps because I believe that everyone should have a smart offer. And not smart in the general sense that we think of smart. Smart is a specific transformation, marketable. I see SMA.
Action oriented, action oriented. Yeah.
Action-oriented, hold on, repeatable framework and tangible ROI, right? Okay. So smart offer. You have to have clarity on your payoff. The very first thing you have to identify is payoff because we can't get them to a yes just on an offer, smart offer. We have to get 3 yeses from them, and we're not listening for a physical yes, but we've got to get them into 3 yeses, and I'll share with you the one that I have experienced coaches having the biggest problem. The very first one is payoff. Okay. The payoff is the outcome. What is the outcome that said client is going to get from me? That's somewhat easy, but sometimes I've seen vague payoffs.
Mhm.
I've seen unclear payoffs. And while that's not wrong, we have to realize that The buyer only buys why? Because they want to. You're not going to convince anybody. And if you do, you probably don't want them anyway. But if you don't have clarity on your payoff, then pause and go get clarity. The second P, and this is where most coaches that I have experienced have the biggest problem, and that's your premise. Premise. What is your premise to this payoff? Meaning, what's the belief? What's your belief? What's your world view on this? And I loved in our pre-conversation, you said, I don't believe. I love that because it's not you're not being controversial, you're not being argumentative. That is a belief, right? And if I am bringing in a client, I need them to know that this payoff is what the outcome is going to be. The premise is what I believe to be true to that payoff. And then the last part is simple. It's the path or the methodology. That's the easy
Right.
part. Those are your steps. But the premise, Candy, is where most coaches won't take a stand. They won't take a stand in their belief, their worldview, specifically on that one subject matter. And if they don't share that, and then they do get into a relationship because the client wants the outcome, they want the payoff, and they believe in your methodology, but they don't know your premise, here's what's going to happen. They'll come into your world, you'll start to express your premise, and then they won't follow your methodology. And then they'll churn and out they
Mhm.
go. So that is what I see in the space of challenging when people are building a business is they don't have clarity yet on their premise.
And I've seen a lot of coaches just spin in indecision. And I think
Mm,
that goes back to your phase one of who are you?
mm,
What really matters to you? What do you want? What do you
mhm.
want to create? Why do you want this? To be really solid in that saves you doing a lot of spinning. Because if, for example, you have a particular belief that, I don't know, integrity is one of your top values, well,
Right,
then you're certainly going to include that in everything to
right.
do with the work that you do. Yeah. So curious.
Yes.
We talked earlier about, and I'm focused on this because I notice where coaches get stuck. So
Mm.
how do you find coaches get stuck and how do you help them get unstuck? Not you as the individual, Adam, but the process and your approach. What do you think?
Well, I think we need to define stuck, right? Because stuck can mean many things. Is stuck lack of clarity on their own payoff? Is stuck lack of clarity on their avatar? There are many areas where coaches can get stuck. Though if I was coaching, which I do, coaches, and I see that they are stuck, we're gonna go all the way back to the beginning. Here's where I love to go is let's go define your bear, right? The bear is the avatar. List all the characteristics of this individual. Let's go list them all. Great. Then what we're going to do is we're going to ask three simple questions. First question, most important question. Do you like them? Do you like that avatar? Second question, can you, and even better question, will you help them? And then the last and final question is, can they pay you?
Mhm.
Right? Can they pay you? So I'll give you an example. We had a coach in the community. She came in, wanted to coach leaders, had this whole vision because that was the container that she came from. About 4 months down the road, she came back, jumped on the community call and said, hey, if I ever have to coach one of those types of avatars again, I'm going to pull my hair out and look like Adam. Great. So I said, what are you going to do? She goes, I'm going to go back to the blueprint. Great. So she went back through and she came back and she said, I missed it the first time. What was that? And she said the word passion. I
Mm.
missed the word passion. It's okay. And she said, I missed the word passion specific to the avatar. And what I found is I actually have a passion for mothers who are running businesses. Great. So she got even smaller down in her niche. She was able to speak the psychographic language, right? So when you're defining your avatar, we know it's demographic, geographic, and then psychographic. Psychographic is how do they think? And now if you can speak like them and think like them, as Rory Vaden says, you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person who you once were. And this coach took off like a rocket ship because she was in an authentic space. She was in a passion oriented space. She felt called to that space. So if they're stuck, that would be the first thing. Okay, but if you have clarity on your avatar, let's say, then I'm going to say, show me the model you're following. Show me the model you're following. Because if they aren't following a model, Candy, here's what we know entrepreneurs are great at starting things. They're so good at starting things. They're really bad at finishing things. And so I'm going to go challenge the model that they're following or ask them simply, what model are you following and how well are you following it?
Now, are you a metrics guy?
I love to track. Yes, I do love to
Yeah.
track. Yeah. So that's what I would say. I mean, there's many ways to define stuck. Those are two simple ones. Let's go redefine your avatar because that brings you passion. That can lead to a calling, which will get you out of bed without an alarm clock. And then what model are you what model are you following? And are you actually following it? Period.
I love this getting up without an alarm clock. That's something that I've experienced for years. I
Mm,
just wake up and it's like, oh, it's time. It's time for the day. I don't start the day on fast mode though. I start the day
mhm.
on slow mode.
Good for you.
So everyone has their dynamic. As you were growing your business, you've been at this for a while and you've got significant success. As you were growing your business, where did you hit some hurdles? How
Mm.
did you overcome those?
Mm. Well, after my father passed, and he passed in his 60s, I made a vow to him, and that here was the vow. My father and I loved to compete and the simple little things. We play horse in the driveway. We were from Indiana, so basketball was all, everything. We were water skiers. He was an incredible water skier. I was never better than him at water skiing. Like we would compete in slalom course tournaments and those types of things. My dad was an Eagle Scout or whatever it was, and I was never even in the Boy Scouts, right? But I did make a vow to him that I would live at least 40 years longer than he did. Okay. So what's that have to do with anything? I got really serious about my health. And so I started getting blood work done every single quarter. I went and hired just what do we call it? A functioning medicine team, right? And so one of the results came back and said, and I love that you said you start with slow morning. One of the results came back and said your cortisol is through the roof. And so let's talk about your stress. Now, I do run 1,000 miles an hour. I do love to go fast, but what I realized was that that isn't always the best approach. And so my doctor said, all right, we're going to work on something here. We're going to work on your parasympathetic nervous system. So, okay, don't ask me to spell that, but I appreciate you say we're going to work on it. What does that mean and what do I do? He says, I want you to go for a walk. I said, for a walk. And he said, yes. I said, how long? He said, 30 minutes. I said, 30 minutes. Can I run? He said, no, you have to walk. I said, walk. Okay. So if
I
I have
like
to
your
walk,
doctor already.
he said, walk. I said, walk. He says, yeah, it's called level 2 cardio, which means you can walk and have a conversation. I said, okay, so 30 minutes. I said, how frequently? He says, every day. And Candy, I said, every day you want me to go for a 30-minute walk? When? He said, the moment you wake up. It was 6 years ago. I go for a walk every morning. Every morning I go for a walk. Cortisol was literally through the roof, and I got it all the way down to like 5. And that was like from a 9, let's see, was that 90? No, that was a 6-month period. I was able to get it down from the stratosphere down to 5. And he's like, "I don't know how well you or how you just did that, but keep doing it." And I haven't stopped. So, just like you, slow in the morning, I get my head right. That's my time. And that time this is what I do. Again, being a spiritual guy, I will go through 10 things I'm hearing. I'll go for a walk at 4:45 every morning. And I get up and my clothes are already packed, like, they're already laid out, and so I don't turn on any lights, I don't wanna wake anybody up at the house. I do bring my phone, but I don't look at it. I don't listen to a podcast, I don't listen to music, it stays literally in my pocket. I listen for 10 sounds that I can identify, and I walk for 30 minutes. Once I get to 10, I pray, right? This is my quiet time. This is my meditation time. This is my lowering my cortisol time, getting into a parasympathetic state so that I can prepare myself because I walk to the gym. I walk to the gym, which is where I exhaust my body to control my mind, right? And that's what starts the day. I don't drink coffee. I've never drank coffee, and it's not that it's a bad thing. I love the smell of coffee and I hate the taste of it. And that's a whole nother story altogether with a nutritionist that I hired one time who forced me to drink coffee. But that's again another conversation. So those mornings, Candy, is where I get to release the failures that I've had. That's where I get to take yesterday's hurt, pain, success, and just release it and say thank you and release it and say, this is what I learned from it and release it because it has no bearing on me for today. And if I let it have a bearing on me for today, ooh, I could be in a world of hurt.
Easy. easy,
Yeah.
right? Every day's a fresh start. And it just reminds me back to your beach chair moment.
Mhm.
Every morning when you start with a walk, you actually come to that place where you're in the beach chair moment. You're ready to
Mhm.
surrender and to receive and to listen. And then it's time to get on with the day.
Right? That's my time. And we have a highly calendared life, right? We say we live a highly calendared life. We have soon to be 18-year-old son and a soon to be 16-year-old daughter, and they both go to a tennis academy and they are on the road nearly almost 24/7 with tournaments. And so we are very calendared, but that 30 minutes is my
I like just that, so for the listeners, just listening to what Adam has shared there, this one activity, not only did it have a big physical outcome as a
Mhm.
result of it, reducing your cortisol. We know what that's like. If our cortisol is down, our stress levels are feeling better, we're more resilient, we can actually think instead of
Mhm.
react, so we make better decisions. But that one activity, that one commitment, 6 years of daily commitment, pretty well,
Mhm.
that is the thing to get over the hurdles. So, listeners, like, what's your one thing that you do? I'm really curious about that. Adam, as we get ready to wrap up, I know that you have a whole depth of knowledge and I appreciate everything that you've shared with us.
If you're listening to this, we created a document which is free for everybody. It simply says get paid to coach. And it's a gosh, how many pages is it? I don't know, 5, 6, 7 page document that's full of questions for yourself that leads you down the path of, wow, am I truly going to follow a path in the space where I can go help and serve other people in a coaching space? Great. I want to follow this guide. So last parting words there, Candy, are simply just that. If you're feeling it, it's probably going to be scary. If you're feeling it, you may get looked at as crazy or misunderstood. It's okay though. It's truly okay. When I sold my franchises and my software business in 2019, everyone thought I was crazy. I was completely misunderstood. It's okay. That was the second act of Adam Roach because I'd already done it once out of the tennis space, and now I was doing it twice out of the or second time out of the real estate space. And now I've been in a seat for the last 6 years ish, serving coaches that get to serve other people. And we have a vision statement, the I Love Coaching community, that's to empower coaches. So not just Adam Roach, not just my team, but everyone collectively together to empower coaches to change and serve 100 million people.
Mm.
And that's what we're being called to do.
I love it. Adam, I have so enjoyed our conversation. Do you have a free gift that you can offer to the listeners?
Absolutely. Yeah. If they go to, you just go to my Instagram, Adam R. Roach, give me a good follow, type in the word coach, and I'll send you that document. And or you can go to ilovecoachingco.com. So CO before the .com. And it's a button that says start here. And that's the guide, get paid to coach. And all day long, you can use that. You can play with it and throw it into your GPT if you want to. Put it into your AI bot, whatever, however it answers. There's some real fun value in there for you to even be a side hustle coach.
Gosh, I appreciate the time that we spent together. So, listeners, you've heard Adam speak, you've heard him give us some really great insights. Make sure that before you finish this episode, you pause for a minute and you think of one thing that he has shared with us that you're going to take and you're going to put into action and you're going to start making a difference in your life. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Adam. I really appreciate the time. And everyone, we look forward and seeing you next episode. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of She Coaches Coaches. If this conversation resonated, take a moment to reflect on what stood out and how it connects to where you are right now. Coaching businesses grow through clarity and thoughtful choices, not pressure or hustle. If you'd like more support, you can learn more at stepintosuccessnow.com. I'll put the link in the episode notes. And if you found this episode helpful, I'd appreciate it if you would share it with a peer or colleague who would enjoy it as well. I appreciate you being here. Have a great day.